Hello, friends, both old and new. I'm John St. Baptiste, and we're here to discuss an amazing short story that is really great about bringing music and literature together. I want to thank everyone who's coming out or who's watching this later. Right now, in the live chat, we have Peter Griffin. We also have Bear Island Josh. Hopefully, a few more people join us shortly. But I am ready to discuss this story. When I sent out the notification for it, I put it in the link, and if you haven't read it yet, you can find it in the description down below. So let's go right into it. The Return of the Great White Duke by Neil Gaiman. This is out of the book Trigger Warning, which is his third short story collection he put out a few years ago. And it's just a really amazing story. A short story in the truest sense, because it is 8 pages, but it's really cool. Now, if anyone here gets into Bowie, there's a lot of past behind this, and there are a lot of keys and illusions, but it tells a much bigger story than that. Oh, and the one spanner who rules them all has joined us. Hello, Braun. Braun Holler's here. Good to see you. So I hope everyone's read this story and is ready to discuss it. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, answers, intriguing bits of trivia, please feel free to share them. I will try and keep up with the chat as much as I possibly can. Or if you're watching this afterwards, leave them in the comment section down below. I am always pretty good about getting back to people about their comments. And Brown Hollow, it's okay that you slept in. You have every right to. Right in the first paragraph, there's this amazing sentence. It is hard to rule, and wisdom can be painful. And the beginning of this story starts out with just the thin white duke who rules the universe, essentially, realizing that everything bores him. There's nothing that excites him anymore. There's nothing thrilling or intriguing. And ennui with immortality and with ruling everything. And he has this moment where he's dwelling on the day before when a supplicant came to him and called him a monster. And he thinks to himself, I never set out to be a monster. But I guess nobody sets out to be a monster. Which is a really good point about leadership and taking the reins of leadership in one's hands. Is that you have to do things that you don't like doing. You have to do things that you think are wrong. You have to make compromises that you don't necessarily want to be making. And this respect and expresses it quite well. Sorry about that echo there. Having little bit of a technical issue, but I think I got it taken care of. So he goes to this creature who, I guess, worked for him, the information beetle, and asks him, what should I do? And he's saying, I really love it because it's something that you see good authors do quite often in dialogue, where essentially two people are having completely different conversations. The one's talking about one thing and the other's talking about another thing. And the Duke is, expressing his regret for basically not having anything that excites him in his life anymore. And his information beetle is offering to do this and do that, and there are all these great extravagant things that a ruler would do or have done in their name. And he's like, basically, like, you just don't get it. Like, nothing excites me. In fact, he even says, I need to care about something. And I think I need a heart. And when he says he thinks he needs a heart, the beetle's like, oh, well, I'll find you the 100 most wonderful hearts and we'll kill 10 times. And this isn't what he's talking about at all. Now, before we go into the meat of this story, I'd just like to ask, how's everybody doing? How's everybody holding up during this fun time that we're having in the world? What are you doing to stay sane? Yeah, Josh, I want an information beetle and a snake advisor too. That would be nice. And maybe if you had an information, or if you had a snake advisor, you wouldn't be peeing on everything. Anyone who doesn't get that joke, scroll up in the chat, and you can see a conversation Josh and I had about how strange mammals are. Well, I hope everyone's coping with this COVID virus thing as well as humanly possible. I know we're all doing a lot of things we don't want to do and giving up things we don't want to give up, and it's hard. So having time to talk to people and discuss things, and like a story like this, I really appreciate and enjoy it, and I appreciate you all being here and checking out. And Brown Holler says she wasn't sane to start with, so no need to retain it. Fair enough. But so the beetle consults with all these other beetles that have been retired or have passed away, or I'm not sure. It's somewhat ambiguous about that. And it knows what needs to be done. Apparently, something like this has happened before. A recurring motif in a lot of fiction that I like particularly in Battlestar Galactica, which we'll be getting Cylon John's back on the air soon. We're having some technical difficulties because some people don't have all of the seasons, and it's getting things shipped and so on and so forth because Amazon Prime took Battlestar down, which is pretty sad, but we're trying to work it out, and I think we will. It just might take a wee bit. But, so there's this whole concept and theme that all of this has happened before, and it'll all happen again. And so the Beatles know what they need to do, and this fairy shows up and says she works for the Queen of Night and Day and the world between darkness and light, the world between the under time and time. And for the first time, the Duke has memories of his youth for the first time in quite some time. And he actually starts feeling something. He feels a need for adventure. So this fairy says, hey, McQueen's locked up in this castle with these beautiful giants that are also very destructive. And, she's like, hey, I need you to rescue her from the Queen. So he goes to his advisor after that and talks to him. And his advisor, of course, advises him against it. But he's like, no, hey, I'm going to do this. But what advice would you give if I'm going to do this? And he says, bring your battle steed. We do have a comment here. Fair Alan Just says, it took the snake. It's kind of like the Weirwood Network, where all the prior Green Seers knowledge can be accessed. Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's kind of similar to that. Or, my first initial thought when I read this story, if any of you have read Dune, the Dune books by Frank Herbert, my first initial thought was like Duncan Idaho, who has the memories of all the other Duncan Idahos because he keeps getting cloned. And something is done that brings back the memories of all of them. Which, by the way, I'm extremely excited about the Dune film that's supposed to be happening this year. Whether we'll be allowed out of our houses to go watch it is, questionable, but or the theaters will even be open. But we'll see. But yeah, I like that idea, like the Weirwood Network. I think that's another really good metaphor to put in there about past, present, and future. Yeah, Josh, I'm really excited about that movie coming out too. I honestly think this short story would make a good movie, or at least like a 1 hour TV episode. That's what we need to push for, is that they do something with Neil Gaiman's short stories, kind of like what was that show when I was a kid? Oh bloody hell! What was it? It would have like a short story. They'd all be disconnected every week. I'd love to see that done with some of his stuff, especially some of his short fiction. Could be really, really well done. In movie news, before we go back to this, apparently Gaiman's talking about finalizing some contractual things about a Sandman film coming out. So I'm very excited to look into that. Doing what I can to avoid too many spoilers, but I do want to know things about the production of it and so forth. And I wonder what storyline they would try and make into a movie. It could go really well or it could go very poorly because a lot of those storylines would, I think, take up a significant amount of time. Moni G, is it happy hour? I'm in Cheers. I'm in, comma, Cheers. Sorry. Yeah, it's always happy hour here. So he goes to the he goes to the stables to get his battle steed, and I really love how Gaiman uses the English language. He described things. He talks about these 6 kings and queens who ruled everything before the Duke came along, and now their battle steeds are his, and he proceeds to take the battle steed and go under space and under time, which is a really cool way of defining and describing transport throughout different spots in reality, like what you would have as FTL or hyperspace or whatever. And when he's coming up on the castle, the steed's like, there's definitely going to be an ambush, and they're going to try and take you out, and he's very nonchalant about it. He's very like, I would expect nothing else. So this is a guy who's pretty smart. And then he comes up on the castle, and there actually are the giants who are trying to keep him away. And he finds out in a twist that they don't work for the queen, or they aren't holding the queen hostage. They work for her, at least in some sort of way. Like the whole purpose of her being there is to be rescued, but there needs to be something for her to be rescued from. Juanita Bryant's here. Hello, Juanita. Good to hear from you. So, that really does, I think, say something quite a bit about the human condition. The person who needs to be rescued, the people who are holding them hostage actually are working for them in their own way, and in a fairy tale universe where part of the plot being developed is that the person needs to be rescued. I don't. There's a lot one could read into that. There's a lot one could discuss about that. So I like that quite well. But it says for the Duke, for the first time since first life, he had something to lose, and the discovery of that made him young again. And I think that's the real important turning point in the story. Hey, Barbara, happy Friday. Friday's my Sunday, but, hey, it's a day off, right? So I don't mind. I'm up very early for me because I work late nights, overnights. Let's see. When it's 4:20 in Chicago. That's cool. You can call you Ravenclaw. Okay, that's sure. I can definitely do that. Not as good as Slytherins, but they're smarter than everybody else. But just keep in mind, Slytherins are the real good guys in the Harry Potter books. The books are just pro Gryffindor propaganda written by a Gryffindor sympathizer. Barbara just got off of work. Well, glad that your day is finished and you can have I guess for you it's your weekend, so have a good weekend. That'll be good. And thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I was originally going to have a guest on here, but some things came up, so I'm doing my best to muscle through and hold this on my own. So I hope I'm keeping you all entertained, and I hope you enjoyed the story and enjoy any discussion of it. Like I said, if you do, please leave any thoughts um, in the chat or in the comments section down below if you're watching this afterwards. um, so he finally gets to the queen after his battle steed defeats the giants. And he says, I'm here to rescue you. And she says, no, you're here to rescue yourself. And yeah, I think, that's the crux of this whole story is that, having, infinite power and having all these, like, you look at this and the Duke, he's just bored. He's just bored. He can have anything he wants, so he really doesn't have anything. He has nothing to desire. He has nothing to want, and I really think that that's quite important. And yes, Josh, I agree that that line was fantastic. We go on to the Queen's 3 questions. And she asks, what's bigger than the universe? And after a lot of thought, he says, the mind. Because the mind can imagine a universe without him, but the universe has him in it. And apparently, if he answers these questions wrong, he's going to die. If he answers them right, then he can save her, and so forth. The second question is, what's more powerful than a king? What's bigger than a king? And he says the obvious answer is the Duke, but that's not what you're looking for. You're looking for something else. And at first he's like, once again, the mind. But then he corrects himself. And he says the heart, because the heart can rule you more than any ruler can. And then our third question is, what's something you can never take back? And he thinks about it for a long time and he says, a kiss. You never take back a kiss. You've given it away. So you can never take it back. And yes, Barry, he did cheat and give several answers, but he also, it was kind of like, it wasn't like a Baggins cheat. It was more like talking to himself out loud. And I agree with Braun Holler here. Exploiting loopholes is not cheating. It's just being smarter than the other person. Not necessarily smarter, but more clever. But so her answer is, all three answers were wrong. But the third one was less wrong than the other ones when he said a kiss. And that's because she said a heart. A heart's greater than the universe. A heart is greater than a king. And a heart is something that you can give away and never take back. And this is when the Duke realizes that his advisors and all sent him here. They've seen this before. This, you have to think these information beetles and the snake advisor have all the memories of every respectively information beetle and snake advisor throughout the history of the universe. So once again, it goes back to the theme of all of this has happened before and all happening again. Beryl and Josh. I'd say cheating, but she let him slide, so I guess it's okay. Well, she was the judge and had no problem with it, so I'm on the wrong side of it. I don't necessarily think you're on the wrong side of it, but I do see where you're coming from there. But I mean, loopholes are there to be exploited. At least I've always felt so. But yeah, he has this realization. They sent him there, and that's when you realize, like, this has happened before, and he gets so bored with everything that he just has to go. And then she says, you can be a monarch or you can have those things. You can have those desires. You can have that need and want. And, it goes back to the, I think it's Spock says it in the old Star Trek. Having is not so pleasing a thing as wanting. It's not logical, but it's often true. And story I've been working on writing for quite some time now that I keep. It's like my baby, so I have to keep editing it and editing it and editing it. I mean, that's the entire story behind it, is that having is not so pleasing as wanting. Because once you have what you wanted, the cost of having what you wanted is getting what you want. And therefore it takes away a bit of an impetus to go on with seeking that out and trying to create something with it or do something with it. But he, yeah, you can't be a monarch and have those things. And she says, stay here with me. I'll be your lover. I'll fill you with joy. I'll take care of you. You'll be content. And then she thinks about it for a moment and she says, you need your discontent. And so instead, there's the great white mist. And he walks into it, and all of a sudden, he's in Beckingham, England. And it's not directly stated, but it's the early 1970s. And with each step he takes, he forgets more and more. Until he says to himself, I'd rather write songs than rule the world. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the birth of David Bowie. I think this is a brilliant story. Now, if there was anything that you think I missed, or that you caught that I maybe didn't, or anything like that, please, let's talk about this. Because that's what I do this for, is to share ideas with other people about music and literature, and I want other people's thoughts and ideas. Nothing? Nobody? Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Like I said, it's a very short story. It's a very short discussion. Um, I'm hoping to get a guest on here and have another and new episode of Believe relatively soon. I'm not sure how weekly I can make it, but I'm going to try. I'm going to go ahead and let you all enjoy yourself. Yes, Beryl and Josh, I love this story too because I love Neil Gaiman and David Bowie, and I thought it was perfect. It was a beautiful homage, and I love that he included all the artwork on the online version that I posted. If anybody checks that out, I I love that they included the artwork by Yoshitaka Amano, who is probably one of my favorite currently active artists. I love his work, and he's done a few projects with Neil Gaiman. If anybody out there's a gamer, he's done most of the character design for all of the Final Fantasy games. And just his art style is absolutely freaking gorgeous. I don't know what he does, but whatever he does, it's amazing. I almost, if I hadn't been car problems, would have driven all the way to Washington, D.C. back in 2001 just to see an exhibit they did of his artwork, because it's just so amazing. So I hope that was a nice little bonus treat. Yes, Josh Brunholler, I agree. The ending was just perfect. It and it makes you wonder if the story started where it began. And it came back to the beginning. Josh, yeah, I'm glad you thought the artwork was beautiful. Amano's great. He's one of my favorites. One more to let you all enjoy your Friday evening. Stay in touch. If you enjoyed this, please like, share, subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you are not getting notifications about videos that I put up, because they are happening more consistently now that I've had some things I've gotten taken care of. And I hope to talk to you all soon. In the meantime, if you have suggestions about a gaming story you'd like for me to discuss, please drop them in the comment section down below. And why don't you go ahead and be excellent to one another and party on.